What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And what this video is going to be about today is the 3 top strategies for starting an Airbnb business in 2025 and 2026 and exactly what the startup costs are for each of them. All right. So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Almahdi. I have a multiple 7-figure Airbnb portfolio and I've done several $100,000 on Airbnb. And this channel is dedicated to teaching you how to start your Airbnb business from complete scratch. So let's get right into it. Number 1 strategy. Let's start with Airbnb rental arbitrage or rent to rent. For those of you that don't know what that is, rental arbitrage is when you go to a landlord on Zillow or Realtor.com, you find a property that's listed for rent on a longer term basis, whether that's 12 months, 18 months, and you sign that lease and then you resublet it with the landlord's permission on all the short-term rental and mid-term rental platforms. So Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, and other platforms. And what you're able to do is on top of your rent and expenses, whatever profit you make, you get to keep. So for instance, let's say the rent is $4,000, okay? And let's say you have utilities, internet, all of these expenses, there's another $1,000. Expenses, right? So you're gonna have your utilities and all this. Let's call it another $1,000. So you're in $5,000. And again, you can find a property for $2,000, $3,000, whatever the rental amount is. I'm just giving you a broader example. And so that is $5,000. And you're able to relist it on all the platforms. And if you've done your market research and you've done the right property research, which is something I teach you, and I'll have the link to how to do the right market research somewhere here in the video, where I break down exactly how to do market research, how to do property research, and how to find winning, profitable properties in today's day and age. So you're able to generate, let's say, $8,000 or more in profit, or I'm sorry, in revenue. So that leaves you with some simple math here, $3,000 in profit. Now, how would that help you, right? An extra $3,000 a month is and can be pretty life-changing because it's a rental payment. It's another car payment or a couple car payments. It's a vacation. That's just from one single property. And this model is very, very scalable for anyone that's just starting out. So let's get into the startup costs. Startup costs are your first month's rent or security deposit, which, by the way, for those of you that have worked with me one-on-one, you know that we are able to negotiate that very often. And you don't even need to always pay the security deposit or first month's rent if you work out a good deal with the landlord and know how to speak with them. So again, something that I teach my students how to do. But typically, let's say you've got your security deposit. So on that first example, it would be about $4,000. And then your biggest expense in rental arbitrage is going to be your furniture. Okay. And if you're looking at about a 3-4-ish bedroom property, on average, you're looking at about $10,000 to $12,000. And again, depending on the size of that property, that could vary a little bit. And you always want to go all out on your amenities because in 2025 and beyond, Airbnb has changed and everything needs to be dedicated to maximizing and having the best amenities at your property. So your furniture, security deposit, and your LLC. Sorry, this is getting a little bit messy. Hold on. Security deposit. And your LLC, which, by the way, is going to apply to any business that you start. But you're looking at about a couple $100. You can use services like LegalZoom, or we'll just go kind of do the the work for you on setting that up. But again, you don't even need to do that. You can just go open your LLC directly on your own if you want to save a couple bucks. So, and I'm not affiliated, by the way, with any LegalZoom or any company like that. Just, I've used them before. So, furniture, security deposit, LLC, these are your startup costs on average for a property. And if you are aware of how to find properties and identify properties that are already furnished and you still have an opportunity to arbitrage a good profit, that's going to save you even spending all this money. And all you need to do is maybe spend a tiny fraction of that adding amenities or optimizing and putting in nicer furniture pieces. Now, by the way, when it comes to furniture and design, you do not need to go break the bank and spend a ton of money on the nicest, most expensive furniture. There's a difference between nice and expensive, okay? You want to find the balance of very cost efficient, but also looks very nice. And that way you're able to deliver the value without breaking the bank and overspending on furniture, okay? But your design and furnishing and how your property looks and fares against the competition and the amenities that you have is a huge deal in 2025 and beyond. So I would make sure you focus very deeply on that, okay? And another expense, I'd say to wrap it all up, is you're going to want to take nice photography with a photographer. That's going to be another couple $100. Okay? On average. And I have other videos that explain the exact process of how to lay all this out. You can find them on my channel as well. So these are your startup costs, ladies and gentlemen. Rental arbitrage for a business that's going to be generating you just from one property $2,000 to $3,000 per month when you find the right type of properties. An amazing way for you to generate a great return and scale it out to multiple properties. So if one house is just doing, let's call it $2,000 a month in profit. I mean, we can do some quick math here and just get 3 properties. Okay? And you're looking at $6,000 a month. Just, and especially by saving money without needing to necessarily get the furniture, you're building a business pretty quickly that's generating cash flow that you can actually do many things with. And that, of course, would be up to you if you want to build that on top of your job, keep your job, or for those of you that actually want to maybe replace your income and build out a business big enough, it's completely up to you, right? But that's the beautiful thing. The startup costs compared to purchasing, which by the way, I'm going to get into next, are a great way to enter the real estate market and enter the Airbnb game without a big investment. So let's get right into it. For owning, okay? So purchasing a property, let's get into number 2, buying a property. So everyone that I work with, and my biggest recommendation is eventually for you to work your cash flow up to a point where you can save enough money and eventually buy a property. Because there's 3 main components and benefits with owning real estate, especially short-term rentals. And I'm going to lay them out for you right here. And really quickly, in 2025, because of the recent laws that were passed, 100% bonus depreciation is back. And with the short-term rental loophole, many people are flooding to start buying short-term rentals because you can claim bonus depreciation and accelerate the depreciation on your property, and that will allow you to offset a huge amount of money in taxes off your taxable income. Again, I'm not a CPA, but make sure you talk with your CPA or tax strategist on exactly how you can take advantage of that, and they'll break it down for you. You can save tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on your tax bill if you do that correctly, and you don't want to miss that. So let's get into not just the tax benefits. So I put that here. Tax benefits is number 1. You have appreciation. So something I love doing when I'm working with someone is helping them identify the markets that are going to appreciate very well, so that when you purchase a property in a few years, you're getting a great return, not just on your cash flow and the tax benefits, but in a few years you have the appreciation of the increase in the value, so that if you choose to sell your property or do a cash out refi, you can claim all of that equity gain just by holding the right property. And another thing you can do is even do renovations and force the appreciation by adding value to the property. And that's going to always put money in your pocket. Okay. And it's very important for you to pay attention to this right now, because as the time of shooting this, interest rates have just started to drop again. So we all know that the landscape has been very, very high interest rates. And up until September 2025, interest rates have just started dropping, and over the next little bit are expected to drop. So you can probably anticipate housing prices are going to at least stay the same, if not start to creep up a little bit, because typically when interest rates go up, interest rates go down, the pricing of houses goes up, okay? So that creates an opportunity, because lower rates, if you're going through the bank, which you don't have to, by the way, there's seller finance, which is something I'd highly recommend, creative financing strategies, and also something called subject to purchases, where you can take over an existing loan that has a low interest rate, and you still own the property, you purchase the property, but you continue to make payments on behalf of the existing loan. And imagine what that would look like if you're able to still lock in a 3, 4, or even 4.5% interest rate. Okay, so there's many ways to get creative and build your wealth and get into the real estate game, especially the Airbnb game, as long as you have the right information. Okay, so by the way, if you're interested in learning about how to do that and you want to work with me one-on-one, which that's something I can show you and walk you through along with the rest of my students, click the link in the description, apply to work with me one-on-one, see if you qualify. And again, if you're eligible, I'd love to reach out to you and help you get your Airbnb business started, no matter what the strategy is. Tax appreciation and cash flow. Okay, these are the 3 biggest reasons you should want to eventually buy your Airbnb. So what are the startup costs? If you go through the bank, let's break it down. Typically, if you're buying, let's say you're buying a $500,000 property, so if your property is $500,000, usually if you're going to the bank, you're going to have to put around 20% down, which is $100,000 in this case. Okay? There's something called a DSCR loan also. It's a type of investment loan where you can actually, right now I'm seeing them around 15%. So you can put a little bit less than that 20% if you have decent credit and are able to find a good lender. But let's say on average, you're looking at 20% down, and you also have, different ways and different types of loans that you can purchase, but let's keep it on average. Typically you're going through and getting a 20% loan. 20% down loan, excuse me. So that plus your closing costs, let's call it another $15,000, $20,000. So let's just call it $120,000. $120,000, including those closing costs. I'm going to try to squeeze it in here as well. Okay. Down payment, right? And then you have, pardon the chicken scratch, by the way, closing costs are another, let's say 15 to 20K. Let's just call it $20,000 for our case. So then you have your furniture, right? Which we talked about. So let's call it another 12,000. So you're all in 132,000 for this type of property. And again, I want to emphasize the importance of getting the right property and doing the right market research and the right property research, especially in today's Airbnb game. You want to have as many amazing amenities as you can, which I'll actually just list some out. And this applies to all of the strategies, by the way. You know, pool, spa, a movie theater room, right? Pickleball court. These are really big. They do quite well for me. So These are just a few off the top of my head, but games, it doesn't have to be some big grandiose amenity, but those are the ones that people are competing very well with these days. You want to basically keep your guests entertained because they're choosing to stay at a property in a group instead of a hotel where there's just a hotel room. So you've got to keep that in mind. In the competition, people have gotten better. The old way of Airbnb where you can just throw up anything and still get booked and make tons of money, those days are over. You have to know what you're doing and be very methodical. And as long as you follow the right process, the one that I'm sharing with you here, you'll do just fine. Okay? So back to the final expenses. So you've got 132K down payment, closing costs, furniture. Again, if you can get a property that's already furnished, it's a great way to save money up front. It really is a great way. If you find the right property, the right furniture, and you're able to negotiate it well, it is still a seller's market. So you can still negotiate getting these at a good rate and even not having to worry about paying for furniture. Okay? And then, of course, you've got the expenses like, photography, which applied to all of the other strategies as well. Photography, another $200. And then your LLC, which you want to put your property on an LLC as well. This is just buying. And of course, you want to have run the numbers. You can also, if you want a profitability calculator that I put together that helps me analyze my deals, you can reach out to me and I'll send you the profitability calculator. So that makes sure that you're getting into a right deal so that this deal still would cash flow for you every single month, at least $2,000 to $3,000 or more on a monthly basis. So these are all the startup costs, guys. It's very, very consistent with minus the down payment and closing costs. The rest is consistent with arbitrage, which of course, this is a big lump sum. So not everybody is ready to do that. But again, build your Airbnb business on arbitrage or the strategy that I'm going to share with you now that actually costs zero up front to eventually be able to buy. Let's get right into it. Okay. So this next strategy is a great strategy if you're low on startup capital or just don't want to use your own money. It actually costs $0 to start. Well, it costs the LLC to start, right? Which is a couple $100. And I'm going to show you exactly what that is. It's called co-listing or co-hosting, also known as Airbnb management. So I'm going to break this down for you as well. Co-listing / co-hosting, known as Airbnb management. So the way Airbnb management works is you're going to go on any of the rental sites, let's say Zillow or Realtor.com or any of these. You're going to find properties that have been listed on these sites. So landlords are trying to get their properties rented. And you're going to offer them a percentage by you taking their property and actually listing it on all the short-term rental and mid-term rental sites and be able to get a percentage of whatever they generate. So it's a very, very great win-win strategy, especially for those that their property is just sitting there and they're bleeding money every month because they haven't found longer-term tenants. So for example, let's say you find a property and it's listed for $4,000. Okay? And the landlord isn't renting this property yet. It's just been sitting there. So he's losing money every month. You come in with a solution and say, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, have you considered short-term rentals or mid-term rentals? What my company does is we manage this entire process for you. We take care of all the management and we get you tenants. And oftentimes we can get you more than what you're asking on a long-term basis. And we take care of everything. And what you're going to do is take care of the cleanings, not you personally, but setting up the management so that you're handling the cleanings in between guests, you're listing the property on all the sites, you're automating that whole process just as if it was your own property. But the best part is you don't have the risk of owning the house, you don't have the rent, you don't have the expenses. All you're doing is handling the management and getting tenants via all the platforms that I have you list the property on, or that you list the property on. Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking, all these other platforms. And you just take a percentage every month, a management fee for everything that they've collected in that month. So for example, they're not able to get rented out for $4,000 yet. You come in and you're able to generate them $10,000 as an example, right? Could be 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever it is. You can usually double what they're asking for on a monthly basis, if not at least 1.5x it, okay? So let's say you know exactly what you're doing, you find it in a great place, and you're able to generate that $10,000 a month. Again, as an example, 4K, you don't have any expenses, you don't have rent to pay or anything. You generate them $10,000. Are they happy? Of course they're happy. That's a great return for them because they thought they were only going to get 4, or let's say their properties even listed for 5K or 6K, and you're able to generate $10,000. That's not only what they were expecting, but even more. So you've helped them out, and then you get compensated. Between, let's say, 15 and 30% is the fee. So between 15, let's call it 20%. Pretty average, right? 20% of 10,000 is $2,000. Now look at that. You just handled listing the property, you handled churning through the guests, and cleaning in between, the whole management. And by the way, that all gets automated, and I show you exactly how to automate that. $2,000, one property. Imagine you have, again, let's call it 5 homes. Let's call it 5 properties. 2K, 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 2K. That's how you make $10,000 in 1 month. If you didn't even own any properties, you don't even rent any of these properties, again, assuming you generated these exact numbers. But guess what? Let's slice this in half. Let's say you were only able to get them $5,000 that month. Because I want to give you, I don't want to give you what you might not be thinking, oh my God, like I can do that for $10,000. They're only asking $4,000. Let's go with low ball, didn't do the best job that month. $5,000. You were able to get them $5,000, which if you have any idea and you follow the steps at all, you'll be generating at least $5,000 a month for this client. If you, worst case scenario, get $5,000, 20% of that, you still make $1,000 and they still made their $4,000. Are they happy? Absolutely. Are you happy? Absolutely. You don't have any risk. There is zero risk to you, okay? You're adding value and you're getting compensated. Now again, 5 houses, 1K, 1K, 1K. You get the idea, right? That's how you make $5,000 simply by following this model, okay? So again, an amazing way to start out on Airbnb if this is what you're looking to do, but I also always recommend you build up the cash flow and you get into purchasing and owning the property. So once again, you can get all those advantages of owning property. But everyone, we all need to start somewhere, and this is an awesome model for you to start with very, very low risk. And even add these properties while you own property or even doing arbitrage. You can always add properties that you already manage because you've already got the systems and automations in place. So what's it to you to add another property that you can manage and still make a cut for? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, those are the 3 best strategies in 2025 and into 2026 on starting your Airbnb business. If you want to learn exactly how to do that from A to Z, I have a completely free course. You can click the link in the description and watch it. It teaches you all the steps on starting your Airbnb business. And again, for those of you that are more serious and want a one-on-one mentor or guidance in starting your Airbnb business with or without experience at all, reach out to me by filling out the application, seeing if you qualify to work with me, and if you're eligible, I'll be reaching out to you. I look forward to working with you. And for everyone watching, thanks again. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and until the next one, be great.